The message that changed everything. The email arrived at exactly 2:30 a.m., piercing through the darkness of my bedroom like a warning sign I couldn't ignore. The subject line stood out like a fire alarm. Your husband's auto shop isn't what you think. At first, I thought it was spam, just another random message meant to scare people. But something about it made my heart beat faster. I had been lying in bed, mindlessly scrolling through crypto forums, unable to sleep after yet another tense family dinner. It wasn't unusual. I often found myself awake late at night, worrying about money, watching market trends, or stressing over our mortgage payments. But this time, my sleeplessness had nothing to do with finances. I hesitated before opening the email, but curiosity won. My name is Laura, and I know this will be hard to believe, but you need to check the financial records of the auto shop from the past 7 months. Pay close attention to the transfers made to MC Holdings. Your sister-in-law Emma isn't funding her lifestyle with her yoga instructor salary. I read it again, my fingers gripping the phone tighter. My hands felt cold, and a strange feeling settled in my stomach. Whoever had sent this message knew too much. Too many details. This wasn't a mistake, and it definitely wasn't a coincidence. MC Holdings. I knew those initials. Emma Thompson. Aaron's sister. The same Emma who had waltzed into dinner earlier that night, flashing a brand new Cartier watch, casually saying it was just a little treat for herself. She had laughed when someone asked about it, brushing it off as if expensive jewelry was no big deal. I glanced at Aaron, fast asleep beside me. The soft glow from my phone screen made his face look peaceful, younger even, free of worry. But I remembered how his expression had changed just last week when I had asked him about the shop's finances. Everything's fine, Laura, he had said, too quickly, almost defensive. Business is steady. Stop trying to micromanage everything. But now, doubt settled in my mind like a heavy weight. Emma's spending habits had always been a topic of family gossip, but lately, they had become excessive. Designer handbags, luxury vacations, that expensive watch. And yet, she was supposedly surviving on a yoga instructor salary? It didn't make sense. A cold shiver ran down my spine. I needed answers. I quietly slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Aaron, and grabbed my laptop from the nightstand. The room was silent except for the soft hum of the ceiling fan. The glow of the screen lit up the walls as I opened the accounting software. The auto shop's records were still logged in from when I had helped Aaron with taxes last month. I hesitated. Did I really want to know the truth? Some things, once discovered, can never be undone. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, doubt creeping in. What if this email was a mistake? What if I was reading too much into it? But deep down, I already knew the answer. Something wasn't right. Behind me, Aaron shifted in his sleep, mumbling something about timing belts. I took a deep breath. And then I started typing. Because sometimes, the biggest betrayals begin with the smallest suspicions. And I was about to find out just how deep this one went. A dinner filled with secrets. I had no idea just how deep this would go. Maria's dining room felt smaller than usual tonight, as if the walls had closed in, trapping us with all the unspoken words and hidden tensions. The rich aroma of her signature pot roast filled the air, but instead of feeling comforting, it felt suffocating. I had spent the entire day going through the shop's financial records, analyzing every transaction, every transfer. And now, sitting at this dinner table, watching Emma casually twirl her wrist under the light of the chandelier, I felt my stomach twist with unease. The diamonds on her brand new watch caught the light, sending flashes of brilliance across the table. Each sparkle felt like a slap, a reminder of the money that shouldn't exist. Oh, you should see the boutique in Monza where I got this, Emma said with exaggerated excitement, directing her words straight at Maria. Her voice dripped with pride, her smile just a little too smug. They treated me like absolute royalty. The service was just divine. Monza. I blinked, feeling my pulse quicken. I thought you were just in Tucson for a yoga retreat, I said before I could stop myself. Silence crashed over the table like a tidal wave. Aaron's fork scraped against his plate with a sharp, grating sound that made me wince. Emma's expression didn't change immediately. But I saw it, the brief flicker of annoyance in her eyes before she smoothed it over with a practiced smile. "I had a last-minute opportunity," she said lightly, her voice as smooth as silk. Then, with a casual shrug, she added, "Some of us know how to seize the moment, Laura. We can't all be stuck behind spreadsheets all day." I clenched my jaw. The way she said my name felt like a dagger wrapped in velvet. Maria, always quick to smooth over uncomfortable moments, jumped in. Her voice wavered slightly, as if she could feel the tension thickening. "The roast is getting cold. Erin, honey, would you like some more potatoes?" I ignored her. "The shop must be doing really well," I said, keeping my voice light but pressing forward. I felt Erin's hand tighten around my knee under the table, a silent warning. But I didn't care. International shopping trips, designer watches, that's quite a change from last year, isn't it? Emma's perfectly manicured nails drummed against her water glass. "What exactly are you implying?" she asked, her voice sharp now, the fake cheerfulness slipping. "Nothing," Erin cut in quickly. "Laura is just tired from work, aren't you, honey?" I turned to look at him, searching his face for any sign of guilt, any crack in the mask he was wearing. But his expression was steady, too steady, as if daring me to push further. It was the same look he had given me that morning when I had asked about the MC Holdings transfers. That moment confirmed what I already knew.
He was hiding something.
"Actually," Maria interrupted, her voice suddenly too bright, too forced. "I've been meaning to show you all something up in the attic, some old family photos I found." Emma sighed loudly, rolling her eyes. "Mom, nobody wants to look at dusty old pictures right now." But I wasn't looking at Emma anymore. I was watching Maria. And for the first time that night, I saw something flicker across her face. Something that looked a lot like fear. She knew something. The email had mentioned family secrets. And suddenly, I realized I wasn't the only one keeping an eye on Emma. The truth no one wanted to face. I wondered just how deep these secrets really went. "I'd love to see them," I said, keeping my voice even while watching Emma's reaction carefully. Especially any from when the auto shop first opened. The air between us grew tense. Emma's grip tightened around her fork, the diamonds on her watch catching the chandelier light once again. Her lips pressed into a thin line before she finally spoke, her voice quieter now, almost a warning. "Some things," she said, "are better left in the past." A chill ran down my spine. She wasn't just brushing off my comment. She was telling me to drop it. But I couldn't. Not after what I had found. The mortgage refinancing notice sat on our kitchen counter like a loaded gun. I had discovered it that morning, buried beneath a pile of unopened mail while searching for more financial records. My heart had nearly stopped when I read the details. Our house, my dream home, the place where I had spent 4 years building a garden I adored, had been used as collateral for a loan I never even knew existed. A $300,000 loan. It was for the shop. Erin had told me when I confronted him, his voice steady but his hands restless, fingers tapping against his coffee mug. I had stared at him, barely able to process what he was saying. $300,000? My voice cracked. Without telling me, the morning sunlight poured through our kitchen windows, casting shadows across Erin's face, making him look hollow, worn down. "You don't understand how business works, Laura," he said with a sigh. "Sometimes you have to take risks." I picked up the refinancing papers, shaking them in disbelief. "This isn't a risk, Erin. This is our home. And what about these transfers to MC Holdings?" His posture stiffened. He set his coffee mug down harder than necessary, liquid splashing onto the counter. "Another business decision you wouldn't understand." That was it. That was his explanation. I let out a sharp laugh, but there was no humor in it. "Someone had to dig through the shop's accounts, Erin. Because while you're hiding things from me, your sister is living like a Kardashian, and our savings account is bleeding dry." His expression changed. His shoulders squared, his jaw clenched. When he spoke again, his voice was lower, edged with something dangerous. "Leave Emma out of this." I exhaled sharply, shaking my head. "And what am I, Erin?" Silence. The kind that speaks louder than words. And then my phone buzzed. I glanced down, my heart pounding when I saw the sender. Another email. From them. Check the safety deposit box at First National. Box number 3145. The truth about MC Holdings is there. I swallowed hard, my pulse drumming in my ears. Aaron's eyes locked onto my phone, suspicion flashing across his face. Who's that? He asked, his voice controlled, but his fingers twitching slightly. I turned the screen away. Nobody. He took a step closer, reaching for my arm, not harshly but not gently either. Laura, wait. I pulled away before he could stop me. Emma's smug smirk at dinner. Maria's nervous glances. The years of secrets I had ignored. I wasn't ignoring them anymore. That's the problem, Aaron, I said, gripping my keys. You never could explain anything. As I backed out of the driveway, I saw him standing in the doorway, his silhouette framed by the porch light. For the first time in a long time, Aaron looked lost. The truth no one was supposed to find. I almost turned back. For a split second, I thought about slamming the brakes, turning around, and pretending none of this was happening. But then I remembered. The refinancing papers. The unexplained money transfers. The lies. Too many lies. The bank was 30 minutes away. 30 minutes to decide if I really wanted to know what was inside that safety deposit box. Because sometimes, the truth doesn't set you free. Sometimes, it just shows you who's been holding the keys to your prison all along. And I was about to find out exactly who that was.
You need to see this.
I slid my phone across Helen's kitchen table, my pulse still racing from what I had just uncovered. The safety deposit box had contained exactly what the anonymous email had promised, documents proving that the auto shop's money had been funneled into offshore accounts. Regular transfers every month, all under Emma's control. Helen's usual playful smirk faded as she scrolled through the screenshots. Holy Laura, this is way bigger than just a designer shopping spree. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. There's more, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. My coffee sat in front of me, untouched and cold. I found paperwork for 3 other properties. Vacation homes. All purchased under MC Holdings within the last year. And all of them paid for using the shop's money. Helen's eyes widened. Does Maria know? The question hit me harder than I expected. I let out a slow breath, shaking my head. I don't think so. But she's been acting strange lately, especially when Emma starts talking about her trips. It's like she's afraid to say the wrong thing. Helen leaned forward, her expression unreadable. And Aaron? I reached into my bag with trembling hands and pulled out the refinancing papers. He's been helping her, I said, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. Our house. Everything we've built. He put it all on the line for her schemes. Helen's hand reached across the table, resting lightly over mine, steadying my shaking fingers. Laura, have you considered that maybe? Her voice was cut off by the buzz of my phone. I glanced at the screen. Emma's name flashed across it. Lunch tomorrow. Just us girls. We need to talk about family loyalty. A chill crept down my spine. She knows, I whispered. Somehow, she knew I had been at the bank. Helen's jaw tightened. Don't go. This isn't about family loyalty. It's about control. Before I could answer, another message popped up. Mom's not doing well. The stress is getting to her. Would be a shame if things got worse. A threat. Subtle, but clear. I thought back to Maria's pale face at dinner, the way her hands shook when she served dessert, how she had tried to change the subject when things got uncomfortable. This wasn't just about money anymore. I have to go, I said, shoving my phone into my bag. Helen grabbed my wrist. Laura. But first, I cut her off, looking her straight in the eye. I need you to do something for me. The breaking point. I pulled out a small USB drive, gripping it tightly before placing it on Helen's kitchen table. This is copies of everything, I said, my voice firm. If anything happens. Nothing's going to happen, Helen interrupted, but she still reached for the drive, her fingers closing around it. I exhaled, shaking my head. Just keep it safe. And if you don't hear from me by tomorrow night, send everything to this email. I quickly scribbled down the contact information of the financial crimes investigator I had found earlier. Helen looked at me, her expression dark with worry. Laura. Her voice was quiet. What exactly are you walking into? I stood, gathering my bag, my heart hammering in my chest. Either the end of their game, or the beginning of mine. The so-called emergency family meeting had nothing to do with Maria's health. I knew at the moment I stepped into her living room. Emma was sitting perched on the arm of an expensive leather armchair like a queen on her throne, legs crossed elegantly, her designer heels swinging slightly. Aaron stood beside her, protective, his arms folded as if he were guarding something. Maria, however, sat quietly in her usual spot, hands folded in her lap. She looked tired, but there was something else in her eyes, something that flashed for just a second when Emma spoke. Mom's been having some memory problems, Emma announced, her voice dripping with artificial concern. The doctor thinks she may need some help managing her finances. My stomach twisted. Maria didn't react right away, but I saw her fingers tighten slightly. Emma didn't even glance at her before pulling a thick folder from her bag, flipping it open with an air of rehearsed authority. I've already drafted the paperwork. Power of attorney. She placed the documents on the coffee table. Just to keep everything in the family, of course. I let out a hollow laugh. Everything in the family? I repeated. Like the offshore accounts? The vacation homes? The shop's money? The room fell deadly silent. Aaron's face drained of color. Mom. Emma's voice turned sharp. See how she's trying to cause trouble? The stress isn't good for you. Maria's hands shook slightly as she lifted them off her lap. I'm not sick, she said softly. And I'm not stupid. Nobody's saying that. Aaron cut in quickly. We just want to protect. Protect what? I interrupted, my voice rising. The family's reputation? Or the money you've been funneling through MC Holdings? Emma's carefully constructed mask began to crack. She stood, her designer heels clicking sharply against the hardwood floor as she approached me. You really want to do this now? She asked, her voice lower, more controlled. In front of Mom. Stop using her as a shield, I snapped, my pulse pounding. I've seen the documents. All of them. Emma's lips curled into a smirk, but her eyes were cold. Documents can be misinterpreted, she said smoothly. Then, turning to Aaron, she added, just like loyalty can be misplaced. Right, Aaron's? I turned to my husband. I wanted to believe he would stand with me, that he'd finally see through Emma's manipulation. But he wouldn't even meet my eyes. Instead, he stepped closer to his sister. A silent decision. A united front. Against me. Sign the papers, Mom, Emma urged, pushing the folder toward Maria. Before things get complicated, Maria's hand hovered over the documents, trembling. And in that moment I saw it. Our family, balanced on a knife's edge. Truth on one side, destruction on the other. I took a breath. Wait. I pulled out my phone, my hand steady now. Before anyone signs anything, there's something you need to see. Emma's smirk faltered. Because sometimes the only way to save a family is to break it first. The moment, everything shattered. I projected the documents onto Maria's living room wall, my hand steady even as my heart pounded. The numbers glowed in the dimming afternoon light, cold and damning. It started the day after Dad died. Emma's breath hitched, but she said nothing. The data didn't lie. Every single week, like clockwork, money from the auto shop had been flowing directly into Emma's private accounts. I swiped to the next screen. The transfers continued, $11s of thousands of dollars disappearing into offshore banks. Behind me, Emma's perfectly manicured nails dug into the leather armchair. You have no idea what you're talking about. I ignored her, moving to the next set of files. $300,000, I said, my voice Zachary now. From remortgaging our house. 3 vacation properties. First-class flights. All while the shop's employees took pay cuts. Aaron took a step forward, his voice breaking. Please, Laura. Stop. I turned to him, my hands trembling. Why? I demanded. Because it hurts to see what your sister really is? Or because you helped her do it? Maria stood up so suddenly that her chair scraped loudly against the hardwood floor. Her face was ashen, her hands gripping the table. "The shop was your father's life," she whispered. "Everything he built." Emma's voice turned syrupy sweet, her fake concern so thick it made my stomach turn. "Mom, you're getting upset. See what she's doing to this family?" But Maria wasn't listening anymore. Her next words cut through the air like a whip. "Family?" Her voice cracked. "Is that what you call stealing from your father's legacy?" Silence. Then, Emma laughed, a cold, bitter sound that made my skin crawl. "Legacy?" she repeated, shaking her head. "Dad left us nothing but debt and obligations. I just took what I deserved." My stomach twisted, but nothing could have prepared me for what happened next. Aaron shifted beside her. His voice was quieter, but no less devastating. "With my help." It felt like the ground had been ripped from beneath me.
What?
"I knew," he admitted. "I helped her set it up." The betrayal hit like a physical blow. All those late nights. The secret phone calls. The defensive answers whenever I asked about the shop's finances. He hadn't just been covering for Emma. He had been helping her. "But our house," I started, my voice cracking. "Was collateral," Aaron interrupted. "We needed the money." I shook my head, feeling like I was drowning. "You chose her over us." "I'm sorry, Laura," he said, but his voice was hollow. "She's my sister." Emma moved quickly then, snatching the power of attorney documents from the coffee table. She shoved them toward Maria.
Sign them, Mom. Now.
Her voice dropped lower, venom creeping in. "Or I'll make sure everyone knows about Dad's gambling debts. How he nearly lost everything before he died. Is that the legacy you want people to remember?" I sucked in a breath. Emma had no shame, no limits. She would do anything to keep control. Maria's hand hovered over the documents, trembling. Years of secrets, of guilt, of manipulation pressed down on her like a collapsing house of cards. And then, I sent the email. Maria's voice cut through the tension like a blade. Emma's carefully composed mask shattered.
"What?" she snapped.
But Maria didn't back down. She turned to me, her gaze steady for the first time all night. "I sent you that first warning about the shop." Emma's eyes widened, shock flickering across her face. I watched you both," Maria continued, her voice growing stronger. "Taking advantage of your father's death. Stealing from his legacy. I thought if Laura knew, she might be strong enough to do what I couldn't." Aaron stepped forward, reaching for her shoulder.
"Mom."
She shrugged him off, her hands no longer shaking. "Don't touch me." She turned her gaze on Emma, her expression unreadable. "Your father knew at the end," she said quietly. "He knew about the money problems. About your stealing. He died thinking he had failed this family." Emma's laugh turned wild, almost hysterical. "Failed us," she spat. "He left us with nothing but debt. Everything I took, I deserved." Then she turned to me. Her lips curled into a sneer. "And you," she pointed directly at me. "You were never really family. Just some outsider, judging us. Thinking you were better." I held her gaze. And this time, I wasn't afraid. "Not better," I said. "Just done. The family that remained." I slammed my phone down, cutting off the projected evidence. "This isn't about family. It isn't about loyalty." My voice was steady, firm. "It's about greed." I turned to Aaron then, really seeing him for the first time. "And in your case, it's about cowardice." His mouth opened, desperation flickering in his eyes. "Laura, please." But I was already reaching into my bag, pulling out a neatly stacked set of papers. "Divorce papers," I said quietly, setting them on the table. "Already filed." Silence. I let the words sink in before continuing. "Copies of everything have been sent to the Financial Crimes Unit. The choice now is simple: sign over the shop to your mother, or face charges." Emma inhaled sharply. "You wouldn't," she whispered. She stepped backward, the confidence draining from her face. Her designer heels, once a symbol of power, now carried her away from the fight. I met her gaze, without flinching. "Try me. Some families need to break before they can heal." Maria stood abruptly, but she wasn't trembling anymore. For the first time in a long time, she looked strong. "I'll sign those power of attorney papers now," she said, picking up her pen. Emma's lips curled into a sneer, but Maria wasn't finished. "But they'll put the shop in my name alone." She turned to her daughter, her voice steely. "Pack your things. You're leaving. Your father built this family on honest work, not designer labels and stolen money." Emma didn't argue. She knew she had lost. The silence that followed felt like a tomb being sealed. Sometimes, revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. Sometimes, it's about giving people exactly what they deserve, the truth about themselves. 7 months later, I stood in front of the auto shop, watching as the new sign was installed. Zachary and Son Auto Repair. Established 1887. Maria had restored her husband's original logo, erasing the sleek corporate rebrand Emma had forced through years ago. She joined me on the sidewalk, folding her arms across her chest. "The books are finally balanced," she said, exhaling deeply. She looked different now, stronger, steadier. More like the woman I had first met years ago. "The restitution payments from Emma's accounts helped," she added. I nodded, thinking of Emma's last Instagram post, some small town in Oklahoma, teaching yoga at a local gym. No designer clothes, no luxury vacations. Just honest work. Finally. "Aaron called yesterday," Maria said carefully. "He's completed those financial management courses. Says he wants to earn back his place here." I raised an eyebrow. "And what did you tell him?" A small, sad smile tugged at her lips. "That trust, like engines, needs more than just new parts to run properly." She looked toward the shop, watching as workers adjusted the new sign. "It needs time, maintenance, and honest work." I thought about my own rebuilding. The divorce had been finalized last month. I had kept my crypto investments. Aaron had kept his shame. Fair trade. All things considered. "You know," Maria said suddenly, reaching into her purse. "I found something while cleaning out the office." She handed me a worn envelope. I opened it, revealing an old photograph. Me and Aaron on our wedding day, standing in front of the shop. We looked so young.
So certain.
"Turn it over," Maria urged. I did. On the back, in her late husband's handwriting, was a message. "Family isn't who you're born to. It's who you choose to become." I swallowed hard. Maria placed a hand on my shoulder. "He would have been proud of you, Laura." I met her gaze, my throat tightening. "Not for exposing the truth," she continued, "but for giving us all a chance to rebuild from it." I carefully tucked the photo back into its envelope, watching as the morning sun glinted off the shop's windows. Sometimes, revenge isn't about destroying what's broken. It's about clearing space for something stronger to grow. Maria nudged me. "Coffee?" she asked, nodding toward the diner across the street. "I hear they serve it without family drama these days." I laughed, looping my arm through hers. "Because some families you're born into, some you marry into, and some you build from the ashes of what burns away. The trick is knowing which ones are worth saving."